shows, I looked at why we humans enjoy music so much. And then last week, covered the very first ever melody and then the very first music with lyrics known to mankind. It's a safe bet that music is a force within the human spirit, and it's obviously been around for a very long time. Today I'd like to move the needle ahead along the timeline we discussed last week and look at how music has evolved through various eras. I'm going to begin roughly around the time where we left off last week with the Seikilos epitaph. So let's begin with the period beginning around the time of Christ and take it to 450 AD. We'll call that the early music era. The Seikilos epitaph provides a glimpse of what early music sounded like. It was played on stringed and possibly wind instruments. Was the music used for dancing, entertainment, communicating happiness or sorrow, paying homage to the gods for religious purposes? Yeah, probably all of that. For that era, and now we're talking up to 450 AD, there were no photocopiers or iPhones. So my guess is that music was probably transmitted orally. Maybe it was sung with an instrument playing and passed along to someone else who would perform it. When you think about modern day folk music being passed, like Celtic music or something like that, being passed from generation to generation, probably that's what was going on back then too. The medieval music period, 450 AD to 1400 AD. This era continued for 1,000 years, and inventions such as music notation began to evolve. The reason for this was that much of the music was done for religious purposes, such as scenes from the Bible. European churches wanted consistency in the way that their parishioners sung and prayed. So notation allowed the sharing of music, and it led to sheet music. For the very first time, it meant that the size and complexities of musical projects grew beyond the limitations of human memory and passing music on. Some of these became what we know of now as Gregorian chants. However, some singers and players also traveled, putting on shows with ballads and either religious or secular music. This was the very earliest start of folk music. These traveling minstrels or these players were the earliest troubadours. The next era, that was a medieval. Next comes Renaissance. That's 1400 to 1600, 200 years in duration. During the Renaissance, for the first time, notation with differing harmonies and notes became popular. For the very first time, we heard multiple sounds occurring at the same time. And this gave rise to the composer, who would weave intertwined notes within the same key. Composers focused more on expression of lyrics and intent than on particular purposes. Their music was written to be performed and enjoyed by an audience. The Renaissance music era featured voice. Sometimes instruments would join them, but composers focused on vocals. The invention of the printing press during these years also aided the growth and spread of music, since it allowed for multiple copies of a composer's work to be circulated. That's the Renaissance period, 200 years. We move now to 1600. 1600 to 1750, 150 years, the Baroque era. During this 150-year period, for the first time, composers would write a composition for a specific instrument, whether to accompany a vocal line, play by itself, or as part of a larger ensemble. As a result, the harpsichord, organ, the violin rose as solo instruments. Other instruments of orchestra worked together to accompany them. And this gave rise to two separate musical forms, the opera and the symphony orchestra. As instrumental music rose, so too did the concept of music without words. Before this, music was not written unless there were words to be sung. By now, with only instruments playing, composers were creating music for the sake of music. As well as symphonic music, operas became increasingly popular. By 1600, we had the dissemination of music, musical notation, and the introduction of voice or vocals. 1750 to 1800. Very tiny window there, 50 years, but a big, big, big one. This is the classical period. The classical era ranged from the death of Bach in 1750 and then on to 1800, a period of 50 short years. In classical refers to the ancient ideals of the Greeks, and in classical music we see a new interest in balance, proportions, and elegance. During the classical era, that Franz Joseph Haydn solidified the form and function of the symphony. Then after him, Mozart continued to develop and elevate the symphony as a musical form. This short 50-year period was packed with musical innovations and creativity, with the evolution of the string quartet, the piano, and of course the symphony, plus many of the forms that music is still written in today. So that took us to 1800. Now 1800 to 1900, called the Romantic era. This 100-year period marks the height of the symphony orchestra. Composers of the Romantic era began to create music intended to reflect human emotions and matters of the soul. Music had moved beyond pretty sounds and into a period where it became a communication vehicle for human emotions. Orchestras grew so big that they could no longer be simply led by the main violinist. And so the conductor was born. Some composers of the time used music to express the sounds of their homelands, so nationalistic music was born. Composers wanted to represent poetry, stories, and paintings in their music. Beethoven created music he expected somebody besides himself would play. I'll have more on Beethoven next week. Composers, though, became more creative and spent much more time and attention on each piece and each part of within each piece that they created. That took us to the Romantic era in 1900, and now we'll go from 1900 to today. The explosion of genres, experimentation, and variety marked the past 100 years or so. While some composers turned to electronic sounds, others continued to write tonal music, but it was all expressive in its own way. Jazz was invented. Pop and rock music dominated the radio, and the top 50 and 100 charts became popular. Movie soundtracks became a commonly developed music format. The hallmarks of the 20th century are experimentation and variety.
I wonder what Paul's featured song is today on SoundThreads.
Another Wine is a song I wrote about a successful businesswoman. She was a career climber and possessed a type A personality that alienated friends and those close along the way.
There she sits beside a window, watching traffic rushing by. All seems fine in Sarah's world. She takes another sip of wine. She wonders how she ever got here. A business darling, always in charge. Bitcoin angel, queen of money. Deep inside, she's fallen hard. College friends called her superstar. She'd flash that smile, break another heart. You can't rewind a broken past, so now this bottle's the only friend she has. She lets her mind begin to wander to those days, running with the crowd. across them. She was climbing, let them down. Life is good, her new bestseller. So why this ache? Is it a passing trend? Thousands love her, get rich off her. You can't make up for abandoned friends. College friends called her superstar. Now suddenly she's come apart. No relief inside, so she's now inclined to settle for another sip of wine.
In our episode last week, Freddie Spaghetti had written and recorded his very own song. Tonight is the next night, and he's hurried home to listen to this new masterpiece. He settles in on the couch, fumbles with the recorder and the earbuds, and then excitedly presses play. He closes his eyes and listens. He's waiting for the magic to reveal itself. He plays the recording and presses the rewind button and plays it again. Then again. Oh, no, this isn't right. This isn't my song. But it is. The recorder is absent emotion or duplicity. It's simply playing back precisely what Freddie had recorded the night before. Note for note and word for word. He hits play, then stop, rewind, play again, stop, rewind, play, stop, rewind, play, stop, rewind. And finally, it strikes him. The verses are fine. They're okay. They tell the story about a lady who was gentle like a flower, but also full of life. But the chorus and some notes and chords not meshing. So that evening, Freddie rewrites the chorus. Finally satisfied that it's better, he re-records it. He puts it away to listen to the following day. And when he does, the song is exactly what Freddie had hoped for when he first began songwriting. And a few days later, he begins writing another song. This one about a cowboy who drinks too much. It's an up-tempo piece and fun to write. After the cowboy song came another. And a month later, Freddie had written and recorded on his Zoom 5 brand new songs. So with song ideas coming fast, he needed to get them down and on the record. The Zoom recorder was no longer for sale. Thanks for listening to Sound Threads. Hope you enjoyed it. Next week we'll have a brand new edition, and I hope you'll join us then too.